Hello, sir. Here's my audience for my antidote speech. So, life lesson. So, several years ago, I bought this young gelding, about a 3-year-old, that liked to buck, which I did not know until after I bought him. Now, you could do anything you wanted to this horse on the ground. Okay, I would put buckets of rocks tied underneath the saddle, underneath his stomach. I would put tarps on his back, tie plastic bags to his bridle. This horse did not care. But once you got on him, if you put your hand behind the saddle, kind of pat his backside a little bit or whatever, he would go bananas. Okay. He also didn't like spurs. Okay. Which I found out the very next day when we went on a test ride, and he and I went bucking across halfway across the 50-acre pasture. So anyway, so this fun time, which by the way, I survived. I did not get thrown off. And this went on for about a year and a half or so, and it got less and less because, of course, he wasn't getting me off, so he was slowly learning his lesson. So anyway, 6 or 8 months had gone by, and I was starting to get relaxed and comfortable with the horse, as one should. And we were working some cattle up on this property, and I was on the high side, and we ended up having to hop across this ditch. And that's the point he decided he was going to try one last time. And he was successful. Took him 2 hops, and he managed to get me on the ground. And by the way, when I looked up, I could swear that he was smiling. So, the moral of the story is one, don't ever think you've got it all figured out, because God will humble you, okay? And if you're a Christian, you know this for a fact, and I don't need to expound any further. Number 2, one thing that I've noticed dealing with Christians is that dealing with people in general, but I'm specifically looking at Christians here, is that we get into a rut. Life starts happening, you get into a routine, and then you get to be 30 years old, 40 years old, older. Even as people get into retirement age, they think the Lord doesn't want to use them anymore or can't use them anymore because they just gotten into a routine. And so your routine becomes a rut. If you keep going around in a circle, guess what happens? You get a rut. And then it's very hard to get out of that rut. And it's very difficult for you to get out of your comfort zone and let the Lord use you even in your later years or whenever the Lord calls you. I'm 40 years old and I went back to school. I'm coming back to school to be a psychologist because that's what I feel the Lord wants me to do. And I'm coming from being a welder fabricator, so a huge difference. But you can change, and you can be prepared for that. Be prepared for what the Lord wants for you. And that's my final point here is always be prepared. If you relax too much and the Lord decides He wants to use you, you might get thrown for a loop, or you might get tossed off that horse, or you might in fact get kicked in the teeth because you weren't prepared, you weren't ready. But the fact of the matter is, as a Christian, you want to be prepared and you want to be used by the Lord. Okay? So let's just keep those 3 principles in mind and let's stay on the horse.